according to Parasurman, there are 7 major gaps in the service quality concept. Gap 1, customers' expectations versus management perceptions. Gap 2, management perceptions versus service specifications. Gap 3, service specifications versus service delivery. Gap 4, service delivery versus external communications. Gap 5, the discrepancy between customer expectations and the perception of service delivered. Gap 6, the discrepancy between customer expectations and employees' perceptions. And Gap 7, the discrepancy between employees' perceptions and management's perceptions. Now, although these can be all can be important to different businesses, I feel like in the mystery shop that I conducted, there were 3 major ones that affected it. Gap 1, Gap 5 and Gap 7. So Gap 1 obviously was the customer's expectation versus management perceptions. I feel like with this one, I'm taking it as the customer expects a certain service as soon as they walk into a store, whereas a manager and management of businesses can often put the business before the customer. So this is where the fact that the staff, instead of welcoming the customers or working on the tills to make sure the customers weren't waiting for too long, they were doing what a manager would prefer, which is filling the shelves. Now, where I understand that delivery needs to be put away and there needs to be products on the shelf for customers to actually pick up, it didn't necessarily need the amount of staff that were being used to do that, especially on a busy Saturday where customers are obviously already probably quite annoyed that they've had to wait in other stores. It would just make that bit of a difference if they walked into a shop, they were welcomed, they were served in a timely manner, and they were put first rather than the business, which is what a customer expects when they go into a store. Gap 5, obviously the discrepancy between customer expectations and their perception of services delivered. Now, as a customer, I have shopped in Superdrug before and I do know their reputation. However, as a new customer, you walk in there and as Superdrug is quite a big company, you would expect a certain level of customer service, which I feel like they did fall short on slightly, purely because they were, like I said with Gap 1, they were putting the store before their customers. I just felt like instead of making sure that the customers were happy in the actual shopping experience, they were making sure that the store was going first. Now, whereas I do understand that, like I said before, it made the experience a lot more stressful than it needed to be, because due to the fact the amount of customers there, the queue was just getting bigger and bigger. There was not enough staff to deal with the queue, and even though, like I said, that before the staff were smiling at the till, you could see that they were very stressed and they were looking for assistance, which just wasn't there. Now, for me personally, this is obviously a mystery shop, so I won't be going on to talk about this store, about this experience. However, if this was a new customer, that word of mouth that would be going around from that experience would not necessarily give the store a good reputation, which can then, if enough people experience that, create quite a lot of problems for the store and for the company in general. People might necessarily not visit the store anymore if they can get their products from elsewhere, from a better shop. And Gap 7, the discrepancy between employees' perceptions and management's perceptions. So basically, as I've said before, I think as staff become managers, they lose touch with the customers themselves, because they're not necessarily out on the shop floor and communicating with the customers. It can be quite difficult for them to remember what it was like, whereas just general employees, they're there every day talking to the customers, serving the customers, and quite often they can remember what it's like to be customers themselves, so they understand, I think, a bit more of what a customer expects and what the customer would want, whereas a manager, they quite often just see the business side of things and making sure the store makes a profit and making sure that all the legal things are done for the store. Where obviously this is right, this can cause quite a divide between managers and staff. The staff can feel like they're not necessarily being appreciated, that they've got quite a tough job and they're not actually getting the support that they need from their managers, which this again can create another drift between them. Obviously it's quite a hard thing to balance, but it is something that managers do need to consider and remember when figuring out how they're going to fit staff into rotas, making sure that there's just enough staff on for the busy days that they know they're going to have, and also just understanding what their staff go through on a daily basis dealing with a busy store.